This podcast contains paid advertisements, but more on that later. Welcome to the O'Connor Bootstrap podcast, where I discuss how you can grow your business by the bootstraps. This applies to everyone with an entrepreneurial spirit. That includes bootstrappers just starting out, established business owners, and business leaders. My goal is to help you grow both personally and professionally. I'm your host, Isaiah O'Connor. Today's sponsor is you. Today I'm going to talk about my buymeacoffee.com paywall subscriber service, whatever you want to call it. It's over at buymeacoffee.com/bootstrap with a capital B. And you can go over there if you like my work, if you want to support what I'm doing, you can go over there. You can donate, of course. And I've set up a new kind of a little paywall, and behind that paywall, if you become a member, it's only now I've reduced it down to $1 per month or $10 a year, so that's not that much, and it will help me out. And you can go over there, you'll get podcast transcripts, you'll get access to my private O'Connor Bootstrap Facebook group where we're going to talk about business and life and encourage each other, and you can ask any question. I'll answer as best I can. All that good stuff, which is pretty cool. And then I'm going to also be adding, as I get time, I'm going to be adding remastered versions of all my podcasts as I can. Since I've learned how to better fix and improve the quality of my podcast, I'm going to go back to the old podcast and remaster them a little bit so they're a little bit more clear, a little bit more clean, a little bit more understandable as I've edited them. So that's all going to be available over on buymeacoffee.com/bootstrap, and it's only $1 a month or $10 a year. That's a pretty good deal. Anyway, let's get into this. So today is another episode of the What is Holding You Back series. And today I'm talking about laziness. And as I mentioned in the perfectionism podcast, laziness is kind of the opposite spectrum, and quite honestly, being a perfectionist can also lead to becoming lazy. Now, I know if you're a bootstrapper, an entrepreneur, a business leader, you will probably kind of bristle or cringe a little bit if you think that somebody thinks that you're lazy. I know I do. Whenever someone calls me lazy, I get really upset because I know I'm not lazy. Now, I'm not talking about a general being lazy, sitting around the house, playing video games, and eating potato chips and junk food all day. I'm not talking about just no ambition laziness. I'm talking about the laziness that comes from being a little better down, quite honestly, and or just being tired of being a perfectionist, again, being burnt out, and going the opposite way, where you try to get things more streamlined, but sometimes you cut corners or don't bother to do extra few steps because you just don't feel like it. And that, I think, is more common. And as I talked about, I was not a perfectionist with the early days of the podcast, and I didn't take the time to look up simple ways I could change the audio to make it sound better. And I do believe I've lost some audience members because the audio was just not that great. So yeah, and I understand that's my fault. I was being lazy about it. Now, that's the thing, that you want to be efficient, but efficiency means doing the best job possible in the least amount of time possible, not the least amount of time possible, which might not be the best job possible. You need both. You need a very high quality job in a very low amount of time. That's efficiency. But being lazy is just maybe not doing the job very well at all, just to get it done as quickly as possible. It's the whole concept of sweeping dirt and crap underneath the rug. Instead of sweeping it into a dustpan, taking it outside and throw it away, that takes a little bit longer, but it actually gets the job done right. Instead, you sweep it under the rug and just hope no one notices. And that's kind of a classic idea. And that's kind of what I mean is when you get going and quite honestly you're tired, you're burnt out, you've bit off a lot more than you can chew. You've set a huge massive goal for yourself and you're just not reaching it and you just kind of give up, or you get hit with a huge setback, you lose a big client, or you have a bad day where the client's very upset and not happy and you tried everything you could and you just blew it and you just had a bad day. It's very easy to slip into the I don't care anymore and I'm just going to throw in a half effort to just get by, just to scrape by, just to get through what I have to do because I just don't have my heart into it. And that's kind of what I'm talking about. That's the type of laziness I'm talking about. Because I would say 99.99% of entrepreneurs, bootstrappers, business leaders are anything but lazy. They work really, really hard. But it can really hold you back when you get to that point of, I just don't have the energy to put into it to do it right. And I can do this, and I'm just going to do the bare minimum to get by. And that's being rather lazy about doing it. And I've been there. That's why I'm talking about it. Matter of fact, all these What's Holding You Back series I've brought up from personal experience. Or at least have some personal experience in this realm. And I've had those times where I just get tired and worn out from the fight and the struggle sometimes, and I just get lazy about getting things done. I don't do things as thoroughly. I maybe skip a step or two, and it can really mess you up because, of course, being lazy means you don't tend to produce as good of a product at the end, or you mess up, or you, because you didn't do it right the first time, you have to go back and you do it again, which costs you more time. My dad always said there's never time to do things right, but there's always time to do them again. And this quite often happens when you kind of let yourself slip into a lazy mode. You don't do it right, you skip a step, you're being a little too lazy to go back and double check something that you know you should double check, and then because you didn't double check, you made a mistake and you have to go back and fix it, which can cause a cascading failures where you have to fix one thing, which causes another thing to break because you didn't fix the one thing properly the first time, etc., 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 etc. And it can become a huge mess. And maybe that's another subject for another podcast, cascading failures. But I find that most of the time when I run into a cascading failure effect, it's because I got lazy in some aspect of what I was doing. Especially when I'm making balloon stuff. If I miss a step, skip a step, and don't double check something because I just am just too tired and feeling too rushed, I don't double check my work. It can cause a big problem that bites me in the butt later on in the future. So yeah, being lazy is a real thing. It quite often is bred from pushing too hard. Not because you're lazy, it's kind of a backfire. You push yourself so hard that you get exhausted. You push yourself so hard that you get a lot more stress, which causes you to kind of break down and hit the wall. And so you kind of back off a little too far the opposite direction. Or you're being too much of a perfectionist and it's taking you so long being a perfectionist, you decide to try to compensate and try to work for excellent, not perfection, but you overcompensate and you become lazy in the process. And when I'm talking about this, every time I've seen it in my own life, at least I can speak for myself, It's always been a direct result of me, an overcompensation, I should say, or burnout because of me going too hard in the one direction. And, that's another one for another podcast, which is I tend to go 0 to 60. And I hit it really hard when I do, but when I do, I overload myself. And it's really easy to go too hard, so hard that you just burn out and you run out of steam. And that's when it's really easy to slip into laziness and just to do things just to kind of get by. And it's really easy to do things like get lazy in marketing, slow down your marketing efforts. You start getting good marketing results, and so you kind of that's another reason you can get lazy. You start getting good results with what you've been doing, and so you back it off. You stop doing what needs to be done to produce results. So you've been marketing every day, you've been posting on Facebook, you've been creating content, you've been doing this day in, day out on a regular basis. You start seeing a good result and things are going in the right direction and you stop doing it. You might carry on for a little bit, but it's like the engine failure on an airplane. You might be able to glide for a while. Eventually, you're going to run out of the ability to continue on and you'll crash. You'll lose altitude and crash. And that's another thing that is very easy to do. Now, this is especially if you're a guy who wears all the hats. You're doing the accounting, you're doing the marketing, you're doing the sales, and then you're doing the actual work that needs to be done to provide the product or service for the customer. It's a lot to do, and it's a lot for one guy to handle. And I've done this. I get really good at marketing, but I'm so focused on marketing, I let my accounting slide. And then I have to go back and fix the accounting to the exclusion of marketing. And in between there, I have to go out and actually do the balloon events. Right now, especially since COVID, I no longer have an employee because I don't have enough business to keep an employee, so it makes all the effort on my shoulders. So it's very easy to get burnout, but it's also very easy to get something going. And once that's going, you want to just leave it go by itself because you don't have the time and energy to keep going on it. And so you go focus on another aspect and then kind of let that one slide and then that one starts to crash and then you run over and try to get that one going again and letting something else crash. So yeah, it can be difficult. It can be easy to slip into laziness on one aspect of your business or another as you are trying to do everything. So again, as it's pretty obvious, you need to be able to confront this and make sure you don't let things slip. Often easier said than done. But I went around and again did a little research, and there's article after article after article online about laziness and how to overcome it. And I found some fairly good tips here, and I'm going to read just a few of these to you, which make a lot of sense. So this is an article on healthline.com entitled 17 Healthy and Practical Ways to Break Out of Laziness. Now, I'm not going to read the whole article. I'm just going to read a couple key points that I think are very important. First one is make your goals manageable. As I talked about, if you put your goals too high, you can get so stressed and you can burn out, and it backfires into making you become lazy about it because you just don't have the energy to do it. So, gotta not set your goals too high. Matter of fact, goal setting is very, very important, and I will probably, again, that's for another podcast, talk about goal setting. But one of the key points of goal setting is making your goals manageable. If your goal is to, for example, you've been working and you've been making $40,000 a year, a manageable goal would be maybe, say, making $60,000 a year for the next year. You want to increase it a little bit. But going from, go from $40,000 a year to, say, I want to make $2 million a year starting next year, that might be a little bit too high. Now, possible you could get lucky, but you don't usually just build up from $40,000 to $2 million a year overnight. So you guys, have manageable goals. Back to that flywheel. Turn on the flywheel. Turn on the flywheel a little bit, and work your way up to it. Set your goals too high, and you're going to hurt yourself. Don't expect yourself to be perfect. As I've mentioned before, perfectionism can hurt you. And if you expect yourself to be perfect, you can hurt yourself because when you're not perfect, you beat yourself up. You can make yourself hypercritical of yourself, which can lead to laziness, depression, anxiety. And it can also lead, in the article mentions, avoidant coping, which means you stop doing the things that are hard for you to do or scary for you to do. And I've done that so many times. My biggest one is with accounting. Everyone has something that they're not good at in general. And when you're not good at it and you're stressed about it, you try not to do it. And I've done that with accounting. I avoid it until I can't avoid it any longer. And then it's super stressful because then I have to go back and fix it and it's a mess and it can be rough. And I'm just going to read one more, which is create a plan of action. Again, there's 17 here, but I'm just going to read that one, which is when you make a plan, when you have a schedule, it's much easier to stay on task than just trying to just kind of wander your way through each and every day. And again, from experience, whenever I am able to set a schedule, plan my day out, and figure out what I'm doing every day in advance, I get a lot more done and I'm a lot less susceptible to wandering off mentally and just becoming lazy about certain things, because if I have a plan, then I know I have a plan, I can stay on it. And whenever I schedule something, it helps. For example, this podcast, I got lazy with it over the holidays last year. I took the holidays off and I just kept putting it off, and it hurt my numbers. No one was listening. I wasn't producing any content. Of course, no one's going to be listening if the person drops off the face of the planet, as it were. And what helped me get back on task with the podcast is when I made a commitment to you guys that I was going to, as to the best of my ability, to produce content for 3 days a week, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Now I have a schedule, and I've set it up to go live at, I do believe it's 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. It's 4 o'clock in the morning, my time, but yeah. But once I had decided that I had a schedule, I had a plan, and I was going to do this every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, that got me off my duff. It broke me out of the being lazy mode and kind of forced me to go up and do it. Even if I didn't feel like it, even if I was tired, I get up and I do the podcast because I've set a schedule to do it. Now, one more thing, which was not in the article, which is actually from a book, which I will again be reviewing probably in the future, which is 7 Guides to Highly Effective People. And that is to take time off. You need to fight laziness by taking a lazy day. Ironically enough, you need to recharge your batteries. You need to have energy, because if you don't have any energy, if you're tired, if you're exhausted, it's hard to keep focused. It's hard to get things done. It's easy to slip off into other things. It's easy to avoid tasks you need to do. And it's easy to become very, very lazy when you're tired, when you're worn out, when you're exhausted. And this is something that's always been hard for me, is stopping and taking a break. Matter of fact, I got a write-up when I was working at Pizza Hut. I got in trouble because I didn't take my break on time. And I would work through my break because I didn't like stopping and sitting around and doing nothing. I wanted to work. There was so much work to be done, so I had to work, and I pushed. I would work through my break until I got in trouble because the national Pizza Hut chain had a list of what time you're supposed to get breaks and in compliance with California law, etc., etc., etc. And they would get in trouble if I didn't take my break on time as an employee. So, you know, so the problem is if you work so hard and you don't take breaks, if you don't take a moment just to relax, don't take a day off at least once a week to be able to rest and recharge, then that's what leads to burnout. And when you get burned out, all of a sudden you become very, very lazy because your body just refuses to let you function because you're exhausted. Unfortunately, at least as far as I know, I'm only human and everyone listening to this podcast is human. Save perhaps the bots online trying to figure out what I'm saying to market things. I don't know. But if you're just human, you need to take a break. You need to stop, relax, recharge, take a day off, take a couple of days off. Make sure you're not exhausted and worn out so that you can come back to it fresh every single day and then you'll be okay. And that's very important. In order to not be lazy during the day when you need to get things done, you need a time just to relax, a time to not think about work, not think about business, time just to relax and enjoy life and recover and recuperate. Then you can go back to it and hit it hard once you're feeling better. Then you'll have the energy to do it and you'll be a lot more efficient as well. You'll get a lot more done in a short amount of time if you're well rested than if you don't rest and try to keep working through. You might even get less done in a longer amount of time than if you had just stopped to take a rest. Matter of fact, Winston Churchill, during the war years, when he was out directing the war and fighting the war, he was taking naps in the middle of the day because he was tired and he knew he would be less efficient if he didn't stop and take rest. And I can't remember his sleep-wake schedule. It was something weird. It was a weird sleep-wake schedule, but it involved going to bed at like 3 or 4 in the morning after working all the way up until that point, getting up at like 10 o'clock in the morning, working until like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and then taking a nap for another hour or two, and then getting up again and working until 4 o'clock in the morning again. Sounds like a weird schedule, I know, but he was very well rested and was very capable of doing his work because of taking the nap in the middle of the day. And I do believe that one of the 2 presidents during the war years saw him do this and adopted the practice and found it very effective in helping you become more effective. So if even taking a nap in the middle of the day was effective for the types of Churchill, then perhaps it's well worthwhile to take a rest from time to time, even if it's a nap, even if it's just a 5-10 minute coffee break. Get yourself a cup of coffee, walk away from what you're doing, get your head together. Another thing is, when you get tired, you start making mistakes. And when you start making more mistakes, then it's easy to get lazy about just giving up on fixing all these mistakes because you just get tired. It's harder to do. So again, stop, get some rest, and relax. Anyway, I hope you guys have a great day. Do push on. Remember that to avoid the trap of becoming lazy, which is a result of pushing too hard, stop, relax. Don't worry about being perfect. Don't worry about getting everything done today all at once. Make a plan, get some rest, go out there and win. So, y'all have a great day. Talk to you later. Bye-bye. If you found value in this content, please leave a comment and give us a 5-star rating on whichever podcast platform you use. We're on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google, and most other podcast platforms. If you would like to support us, you can check out our sponsor links, or if you'd like to support us directly, you can donate or join our membership program at buymeacoffee.com/bootstrap. Of course, it really helps when you share these podcasts with your friends as well. If you'd like to interact with me and other bootstrappers and leaders, you can join us over at our O'Connor Bootstrap Podcast Facebook group. You have been listening to the O'Connor Bootstrap podcast, an Atheoz Business Solutions podcast. For a companion podcast, the Atheoz Business Podcast, which is hosted by Jason St. Clair, past episodes and related blogs, please check out our website at www.atheoz.com, which is at www.atheoz.com or theoz.com. Until next time, I have been your friendly neighborhood entrepreneur, Isaiah O'Connor.